famous rabbis of yesteryear. Now, we're going to explore the life of Rabbi Shabtai Akshoti. Very, very great rabbi he was. I think Hilula actually is going to be on the 3rd of Tevet, which is in the coming days, just after the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. He was a great rabbi. He passed away in the year 1888. I'm not too sure the exact date when he was born, but Beatus May, he was a famous rabbi of his time. He actually came from a great auspices. His father was Rab Chaim, if I'm not mistaken. His mother's name was Marat Luna, and he was born, I believe, in Kushta, respectively, in Turkey, which had a great Torah, let's say a bastion Jewish community in of itself. Now, he grew up with Torah, Yirat Shamayim, and was considered to become one of the great rabbis of Kushta, respectively, Istanbul. I think it was around the year 1817. Now, I'm not sure his exact age at that stage in time. He would be fortunate enough to make Aliyah to the land of Israel. And as I say, it's over here. In 1870, Zachava ala Eretz Yisrael, b'siyor hanadib Rafael Yehuda Benevisti mi'irot Kushta. Remember, the Benevisti family was another famous, let's say, rabbinic family in Turkey of its time. I think they also were in Greece at one stage in time. And he would actually go on to live in Jerusalem over there. B'Yerushalayim, hit areach beitam shel mishpachat Romano. Now, it's interesting enough, he would, I think, visit and was close with the Romano, famous family, in the old city of Jerusalem. Remember, they were family greatness of itself. I think a family of rabbis, if I'm not mistaken. So when they first came, there was, that sort of protection and great friendship over there. So I think it was in the year 1884. I think this would be possibly about 4 years before he passed away. He would actually bring about his book called the Kol Shechal, if I'm not mistaken. This was together with his book, I think, of his older brother, the Bnei Yitzchak, if I'm not mistaken, of Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti, who we are going to speak about in due course also in a few minutes. And I think he passed away himself either in, I think around the year 1862. He passed away, Rabbi Yitzchak did, if I'm not mistaken, around that specific period of time. But we'll speak about him in a minute because he was also a very great rabbi, and we must point out. Now, in 1876, I think we'll go back a little bit, Rabbi Shabtai Akshoti bana beit midrash gadol mufo'ar b'shchunat Nachlat Shiva b'Yerushalayim. He will actually build a synagogue, a study hall in Jerusalem, which I believe was actually established in the end around in 1869. Something was built. Hayeshiva hukma b'nedivoto shel chavero Rafael Naftali Halevi, another famous person. Shala afu ma'i Kushta. So he would actually come, I think, from the city of Istanbul, also respectively. Now, I think this Beit Midrash, this Torah study hall, was called Yeshivat Echad. Very interesting name. This was a remez, let's say, hint. The Shlosha Eseh Chochmei HaYeshiva HaRishonim. The hint, let's just say, to the first 13 yeshivot that was beforehand at the start of the time period. Now, Rosh Yeshiva Ahmad Chacham Shabtai Akshoti. He would actually become the Rosh Yeshiva, be a very prominent position for this specific task in hand. Now, I believe he passed away on the 3rd of Tevet in the year 1888, and he was buried in Har Hazeitim, the Mount of Olives burial plot in Jerusalem, respectively. Let's speak about his older brother. His older brother was another very famous rabbi, Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti. Also, I think his Hilula happens to be on Yudchet at the ER, and we did record a video, I think, at the time of his Hilula. Obviously, we mentioned about the parents before, his father, and his father's name, I think, was Rav Chaim, as we mentioned before. And he would learn Torah, Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti, I believe, in Istanbul also, among the great rabbis of the city also. I think also under auspice of Rabbi Eliyahu Aniv, if I'm not mistaken. He was a very famous rabbi in Istanbul. At this time, he was Rosh Yeshiva, an outstanding one during the 19th century. And I think we've spoken about him before, if I'm not mistaken. He was so great. He was a Talmid of Rabbi Eliyahu Palomobo, and he was a rabbi of Rabbi Eliezer di Toledo, also respectively. So he had very great Talmud, and obviously most notably Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti, who we have to point out. He himself, Rabbi Eliyahu Anab, would pass away in 1832, if I'm not mistaken, and was part of a great rabbinic structure, which included rabbis of the caliber of Rabbi Shlomo Hakim, also at that era in time, and he was very close to Rabbi Eliyahu Palomobo, who Rabbi Palomobo was also another great rabbi we have to point out in Istanbul. in of his days, head of Jewish court, and was author of the Yad HaMelech Torah colossal work. So that's very, very interesting. That's Rabbi Eliyahu. And now let's go back to Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti, because he happens to be the older brother of Rabbi Shabtai over here. I think he would get married. Hu nasali sha'ed bito shel Rabbo, his rabbi's daughter, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it was in 1837, Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti would start working as a rabbi and as a judge, if I'm not mistaken, inside the city of Istanbul, and would do on various different importances, have a position, I think, for 25 years. And there were great Dayanim in his court, including Rabbi Yosef Alfandari, from the famous Alfandari rabbinic dynasty, and Rabbi Yaakov Halevi. And so he himself, as we mentioned before, Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti, passed away on the 18th of Iyar in 1862. So he actually would print a book called the Bnei Yitzchak, which was a shilot, question and answers, and various different drashot. I think it was actually published in the 1884, 4 years after he passed away. And that was very much in correspondence with his brother, Rabbi Shabtai Akshoti. He passed away as Rabbi Yitzchak passed away, I believe, as I said before, in 1862. So this book would be published more than 20 years after he passed away. Very interesting enough. Let's go back now to speak about Rav Shabtai over here. So we see that his Hilula is on the 3rd of Tevet, 1888. Let's explore a few of the highlights from his Torah writings. I think it's very important to get a feel of the rabbi over here by expressing his, some Torah teachings, let's just say, in of itself, respectively, from the great rabbi. Friends, anyone, in the meantime, if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please subscribe. We're a community here. We're learning about great rabbis of yesteryear and various different importances we have to point out. So please, welcome to our community, and please join. And one of the best ways is by also subscribing, and we will really, really appreciate that. So, very, very interesting. Let's talk a bit more about the great Chacham, because there's a lot that can definitely be said over, which I have to point out just from his book. Sometimes by learning a few of the highlights from the Torah colossal works, you really get a feel for the brilliance of the various different rabbis. So one of the teachings he actually says over is Melamed ukabela Yudim. How important is that, especially the merit of great righteous people inside the specific district in of itself? It really does protect the whole vicinity, especially. So Torah really does reverberate, let's just say, and really spread in of itself. I think it's come to the Kol Shachal from page 64, Amud Bet, if I'm not mistaken. It was actually printed through, I think, the Fus Avram B'Achiv Yitzchak Gagin, or Ganin, in 1884, respectively. So that is one of the definitely highlights inside the book that we have to point out over here, friends. And let's explore a few more. Melamed likvua limudo b'beit midrash, talmidei chachamim u'ba'alei batim. The importance of both great Torah scholars and balabatim, people that are, let's say, working people in themselves. How important it is to have a fixed time of Torah studying and the Talmud flourishing on a daily basis. Also, respectively, that's something that we have to point out over here within regards to the teaching, without a doubt. Okay, so that comes from there, from 1884. Another teaching, Melamed Malat Hanoten Tzedaka B'Galui. It's a very important teaching he gives it, and that's very much featured in page number 28 in Amud Aleph. So that I recommend everyone to always look at these teachings, which I'm just rallying over inside. Also, respectively, how important actually that is to do. Now, just to conclude, just maybe another insights to the book, or a couple more insights. Melamed שרוצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לבוא בגאולה ומידות רעות מרחיקות הגאולה. So if you've got good midot, you're bringing, let's say, the geula closer, respectively, at that stage in time. But if you've got bad midot, you're actually putting it further over there. The bad actions are, and that obviously is going to be very, very problematic. So that's something that we have to point out. So how important it is to bring about a shining and great midot in all our characteristics, and that can, let's just say, read huge benefits just overall inside the great scheme of things also. So let's explore one more highlight over here, friends, everyone here on this special edition, as we're speaking about great rabbi, or two more highlights. Sedari limud b'yeshiva echad talmid chachamim ve'echad ba'alei batim. That's one of the teachings. And melamed So the important is that giving eulogies and the obligation within regards to that, if a great Chacham passes away, it's very, very important. And I would very much advocate, people to read his writings and so on and so forth. I'm just going to take a short break. I'm going to be back in half a minute. In the meantime, while you're here online, please don't forget to now subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back in 1 minute, friends. Yeah, thanks everyone for the patience over there and waiting. Over here, we're exploring the life of a great Turkish Rabbi over here. Marks his Hilula here on the 3rd of Tevet. Rabbi Shabtai Akshoti, a Rabbi. We've spoken about his family before. His famous book, the Kod Shachal, I very much recommend people to actually look into this work. I think it was actually printed in Jerusalem, what you have to point out. And this great Torah book was, I'm actually looking at the preface as we actually speak at the moment. And how great the rabbis were of yesteryear, of those points of time we used as a source for these videos, Hayimi website and also Wikipedia, also respectively. There's we spoke about his brother, also older brother, Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti, and also a famous rabbinic family. Also have to point out, and for example, Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti, his older brother's book, I think the Bnei Yitzchak itself, respectively, has as many as 427 pages. As we said before, it was printed in 1884, also in Jerusalem, this book was, which had great, let's say, it was a Sheilot Shuvot, question answers, various different sermons, drashot, and I think it was actually printed in Hebrew, interesting enough. So actually, both of them have excellent prefaces in of itself, and I very much recommend people to actually read that book, and it just can learn more about the great family itself, because it was a famous family of yesteryear, without a doubt. They were this rabbinic dynasty was, and Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti specifically was a great rabbi. So remember, Turkey was a bastion of Torah learning, and we actually recorded a video, friends, of the history of Turkish Jewry. I think it was a 3 or 4 or 5-part series, if I'm not mistaken, which we completed, I believe, only a couple of months ago. Rabbi Yitzchak Akshoti, just to recap, was one of the great Chachamim, the great poseks of his area in Constantinople, or also Istanbul in Turkey, respectively, and the author of great Torah book, and really dealt with regards to halakha in of itself, and was seen as very, very important. And can be said, I recommend everyone to actually look over at those specific videos that we recorded about in the past. Also, I think it's a very, very good idea to watch it. And we also did record a video about Rabbi Yitzhak Akshoti. I think it was about 7 months ago, if I'm not mistaken, possibly maybe at the time period of the Hilula of his brother. So that's something I would definitely point out over there. So that's very, very much recommended. Jaime website gives actually a good resource for some of the highlights of Rabbi Yitzhak's life also, and how he was close to Rabbi Yosef Fandari, Rabbi Yaakov Halevi. It was really great time period in itself. And I think they actually say, it says Rabbi Shabtai Akshoti, who we're speaking about today, would actually eulogize his brother at the time when he passed away. It says over here, just using the Haimi website, Chacham Shabtai Akshoti, who we're speaking about, Shesapadlo, with regards to Rabbi Yitzhak, I believe, in 1862, Ha'id alav ki milvat ha'shaya chacham gadol b'torah, malev gadush, sinai v'oker harim, od hayu lo midot tovot, great characteristics he had. He just testified to himself. Kodem kol shehaya kanai b'kanat Hashem, like he was really, really trying to do the ratzon of Hashem and everything. V'ya goneach milibo v'noten et kolo b'bechi, ech Torah shlema shelanu mecholot al hamaot. This was one of his, let's just say, how his characterization. So it just shows how brilliant he actually was and the good qualities, and how it would make him cry when he sees even the Torah violated in of itself. So that was his, let's say, eulogy or sum up within regards to him. We're speaking about great rabbis of yesteryear over here. And friends, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and join our community over here, friends, and we'll really, really appreciate it. Now, if you feel if you happen to be related to anybody, you descend from any of the great rabbis we're speaking about, I'll really appreciate it if you let me know, and I would love to hear more information. If you feel I have left something out or should have brought something else out, I'll really, really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. If you haven't seen our tours yet, we do fabulous tours all over this great country of Israel. We see archaeologies, we go to different places, and we try and visit all over different parts of Jerusalem and Bet Shemesh and various other places. That's something we do. And we've got an inspirational Jewish personality every single day that gives over a burst of wisdom for Am Yisrael to really energize and popularize our day. So much content we're doing over here and trying to get the backbone within regards to Jewish history. So I think on this night, I wish you all a good night. Please subscribe, take care, and have Chanukah Sameach. Thank you for watching, friends.